Hey everyone, Kelly Dean Allen here with you again. Today we're going to have a look at 14 outstanding and for the most part pretty well-known guitar solos from the world of pop music. Now when I say pop music, I hope you know what I mean, because heck, even hair metal and its myriad of power ballads from back in the 80s and early 90s could be considered pop music to some degree. And that stuff has loads of guitar solos, and of course they were expected to be there. That said, there will not be any of those here in this video. I'm speaking strictly pop world, AM radio or easy listening type of stuff that just happens to have some pretty fantastic guitar solos held within them. Many times, somewhat unexpectedly, I suppose. That said, let's get started, shall we? Good then, first up, and in no particular order as this is not a countdown, we have a band that I can honestly say that I've never listened to voluntarily, though I have nothing against the group whatsoever and respect the hell out of them as musicians. They're just not my style of music. That said, this very soft rock duo received copious amounts of hate mail because of this particular fuzzed out guitar solo that popped up seemingly out of nowhere in their 1972 extremely soft rock top 10 hit, mainly because it was so far outside the scope of the band's music in general, with many of their fans strongly accusing the band of going hard rock. That said, this is the guitar solo to Goodbye to Love and the Carpenters, with the solo itself put down by the band's guitarist Tony Peluso. Let's give it a listen. Next up, we have the solo from a track originally released in 1997, but not actually released as a single, the 8th from this album, until 2 years later in 1999. Remarkable, really, that a cut released as the 8th single would go on to become one of this artist's biggest and most recognizable hits to this very day, and a track that went top 10 all over the world at the time. This is the fantastic country pop guitar solo to Shania Twain's Man, I Feel Like a Woman, put down by Nashville session guitarist Dan Huff. Let's give it a listen.
Feel like a woman.
Good then, next up we have one of those solos, like many in classic pop songs, that kind of makes you think, did that song even have a guitar solo? Well, of course it did, or it wouldn't be here. Thing is, it just kind of gets overshadowed by the iconic nature and long-lasting popularity of the song itself. That said, Guitar World magazine put out a list of the 21 most underrated guitar solos of all time, and this solo was their pick at number 1. This is the solo to Carly Simon's 1972 hit You're So Vain, with Jimmy Ryan on guitar. So then, 3 down so far, and all from female artists, more or less. So let's shift gears here a bit and get some of the pop rock boys involved in this list for the next few. Now, many think that this solo was put down by one of the primary artists in this band, as he did play guitar and solo occasionally. However, like pretty much all the solos previously on this list, this solo in particular was actually put down by yet again another touring session player, and a fantastic solo it is. This is the outro solo to Everybody Wants to Rule the World by British synth-pop duo Tears for Fears, put down not by co-band leader and guitarist Roland Orzabal, but by the band's touring guitarist Neil Taylor. Right then, up next we have another hugely popular male pop rock duo, this time from America, and yet again another co-leader of the group who actually plays guitar, but again did not put down this particular killer guitar solo. That duty went to, not surprisingly at this point, to yet again another session player. This time being a fellow by the name of Jeff Southworth. Can't say that I've heard of him, to tell the truth. Regardless, the solo that he put down on this Hall & Oates classic is, in my opinion, one of the all-time greatest pop rock guitar solos ever recorded. This is the awesome solo from Kiss On My List and Hall & Oates from 1980. Up next, we have one of the most famous guitar solos of all time, sitting smack dab in the middle of one of the most laid-back and chill soul R&B songs in pop music history. That track is, of course, 1977's aptly named Easy by the Commodores, with solo put down by the very talented and longtime Commodores guitarist Thomas McClary. Let's give it a listen. Sweden. We're going to Sweden for this next one, and one of the biggest pop hits of 1989, going to #1 throughout much of the world, helping to cement this band as the second biggest selling Swedish band in music history after, of course, ABBA. And eventually we're going to get to a solo put down by one of the primary artists, then again, maybe not. However, yet again, this ain't one of them. That said, this scorcher of a guitar solo to Roxette's Listen to Your Heart was put down by the band's, usually in the background, lead guitarist Jonas Isaksson. Can't say that I know much about Jonas, as his entire wiki entry is in Swedish, and I don't speak Swedish. Regardless, let's check out his memorable solo from Roxette's Listen to Your Heart. Good then, next up we have one of the most famous guitarists on this list, and finally someone you may have actually heard of. Not only because of his tremendous skills within his own band, Toto, but as a session player guesting on Too Many to Count recordings by other artists. That man is Steve Lukather, and the solo that we'll be looking at here is his guest spot on Lionel Richie's 80s pop hit Running with the Night. Now this track has two Lukather solos, the main solo which we'll be looking at first, and a very long, much more technically impressive extended outro solo wherein Lukather just goes off for quite some time. The whole thing is quite long and kind of beyond the scope of this particular video, and also beyond the scope of my ability to spend a few days learning it all. So we'll just tack on an abbreviated version of the outro solo here just for fun. Let's check them out. So then, in a similar vein, we have yet another really outstanding guitar solo in another rather lightweight but excellent soulful 80s pop hit. This time with Phil Collins and Philip Bailey with the solo to Easy Lover, put down by longtime Collins and Genesis guitarist Daryl Stuermer, who, like Lukather, is another player that you just may have heard of. Really outstanding solo put down by Daryl for this one. Let's give it a listen. Okay then, so maybe this one is a little bit of a cheat, because this band was actually considered a rock band, so a guitar solo wasn't exactly too far out of place and unexpected in their music. However, they only really ever had one major hit, and it was very much a pop hit. And unfortunately, this absolutely killer guitar solo by guitarist Burton Avere was actually cut from the radio edit of this track to shorten its length. So many people out there don't even know that this song actually even had a guitar solo, let alone one this damn good. Personally, I place this one as one of the greatest guitar solos of all time by any guitarist. This is the solo to My Sharona and the Knack. All right then, for our next awesome solo in a pop hit, we're heading back to 1978. This time with yet another top 10 hit pretty much everywhere in the world at the time. Now, this song is more widely known for its more famous saxophone melody line and solo. However, the guitar solo itself certainly stands on its own and is well worthy of inclusion here on this list. This is the solo to Baker Street and Jerry Rafferty, put down by the prolific Scottish session guitarist Hugh Burns. Let's give it a playthrough. Good then, on to another possible cheat here, because this band is so much more than a pop band, and by a long shot. That band is Steely Dan, and despite the musical complexity of the majority of their compositions, many of their biggest hits were pretty much straight up easy on the ears pop songs, albeit performed by some of the greatest musicians the world has ever seen. Now, there are countless examples of outstanding guitar solos in Steely Dan's music. However, I figured that in keeping with the spirit of this video, I'd go with what was their overall biggest pop hit. That being Ricky Don't Lose That Number from 1974, with a solo put down by the legendary Jeff "Skunk" Baxter. Let's give it a listen. Right then, the penultimate solo on our list, and another big pop hit from 1980, with another guitarist you just may have heard of, one Mr. Neil Giraldo, songwriting partner, husband, and guitarist to Pat Benatar. That said, the solo that we'll be looking at here today is not from a Pat Benatar track, as she was of course kind of an 80s rocker and solos were somewhat expected in most of her songs. No, the solo that we'll be checking out here today is from Neil's guest spot on Ozzy Rick Springfield's pop mega hit, Jesse's Girl, from, like I said, 1980. Bit of a rocker, sure, but most definitely a pop hit, as big, if not bigger, than any other at the time. Let's check out Neil's work on this one.
Where can I find a woman like that?
Alright then, let's finish up here with the granddaddy of all pop rock guitar solos, and one that I would be remiss to not include here on this list. And by the sheer fact that I haven't played it yet, you more than likely already know what it is. Like I said, this list was not a countdown per se, but were it such, this solo would no doubt be firmly sitting at number 1. That said, thought I'd save it for last to close out the video. That solo, of course, is the solo to Michael Jackson's Beat It, put down by the late, great Eddie Van Halen. Arguably the most famous pop rock guitar solo ever recorded. Let's give it a playthrough. Well, there you go. Certainly hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, please hit that like button down below. Maybe drop me a subscribe if you haven't done that already, as that would be very kind. Now, as this video is very likely going to get hit with numerous copyright claims for my flagrant use of backing tracks underneath all of these solos, I won't be getting a penny from it for all the work that I put into it over the past week or so, and that's for certain. So if you feel like hitting that super thanks button down below, or perhaps a PayPal tip, which you'll find a link to down in the description box, to support me and my channel, that would be greatly appreciated. Or not. I'm easy. It was still great fun learning and doing my best to recreate all of these fantastic guitar solos. Regardless, take care of yourselves. Hope you're well out there in your little guitar corner of the world, wherever that may find you, and we will see you next time. Cheers.